Now you're probably wondering what this is. This is ribbing, the start of the ribbing, which we're going to do right now. But before we do, pop your hand in. Make sure this fits nice and snug around your hand with maybe like a finger space. If it's like this and you can't move, then you take your single crochets undone and just do a half double crochet row. All right. If it's like that and you need it tighter, I would leave it like that because our ribbed row now is going to tighten it up a lot anyways. All right. So what you have is that. Let me show you something so you can see that with no lines down the middle. How cool is that? It took me a long time to work that out, but I worked it out for you and I'm glad I did because I don't want you making mistakes like I did on the very first one. We're going to work up and come down, slip stitch, up, come down, slip stitch, up, come down, slip stitch, and so on. So let's start by chaining 1. So don't make this chain too tight. Yeah. Chain 1, 2, 3, don't make them too tight, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right. Now we're going to work on these chains. Okay. Now that is your very first chain you come to. Let's get it close up so you can see what I'm doing here. Your very first chain you come to is right there. Pop your hook in, pull a loop through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both loops. You don't need to do this, but I'm just doing this for the new crocheter. So pop your stitch marker in here. All right, this is how we do our ribbing once it's on a piece, yeah? Single crochet into your very next chain, 2. Single into your next 3, and you're going to do that all the way across. 4, 5, 6, going to be a little awkward here, but keep going. 7, 8, and you'll get 1 more in because we chained 10, so you've got 1 right there, which is 9. Now you are already in this stitch right here. So what you're going to do, see where you are right there? You're going to go into that one there, the one next to it with a slip stitch. Pop your hook in, pull a loop through, and pull it through to the loop you are in once. Go to the next one, slip stitch again, in, pull a loop through, and pull it through to the loop you are in to. Turn your work. You're going to work alongside these stitches as well. Now, the way it works is you're going to work in these single crochets right here, yeah? But you're working into the back loop only of the first 8 single crochets. So you're going to skip these little slip stitches you just made. So you're skipping that 1 and that 2, and you're going into the first stitch there, but the back loop only, which is that one there, yeah? You've got your 2 loops there. You're going through the back one only with a single crochet. 1. Into the very next back loop only, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right there. Now in the 9th one, the reason why I got you to put the stitch marker in, and mine's in the split, mine split mine anyway, put it in the full stitch. Let me take that out because I've split mine. I thought I was so clever. You're putting your single crochet through the full stitch, and that's both loops, one on one side and one on the other. There you go, like that. Don't split the yarn like I just did, yeah? And then you are chaining 1. Always chain 1 at the end of the tip of your row. Flip your work or turn your work. Single crochet in that full stitch of your first one. And once again, you can try put the stitch marker in without splitting it. She's so naughty. And it's the yarn, I think, because I've been splitting it all the way through this project. So there you go. It's not the handler. All right, once again, you're popping your hook in the back loops of these 8 stitches. So straight, so there's your 2 loops there, yeah? We want that back loop right there. And I split the yarn again. So right in that back loop with a single crochet, whoops, 1, so tight, 2, 3, I'm getting angry with myself here, guys, 4, oh gosh, 5, 6, 7, it's a little tricky here. You've got to remember to get into that 8th stitch right there. It's a little tighter than the rest because it's right near your slip stitches. So there's your 8th stitch. Now, you are already in that stitch there. You've slip stitched 1 and 2, yeah? Now you want to slip stitch into your very next stitch. 1, slip stitch into the second one, 2, turn your work, and once again repeating that row into that stitch. Remember to skip those slip stitches, yeah? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and guess what? Your 9th goes in the full stitch. Right there, chain 1, take your stitch marker out, turn your work, and repeat that other row. Single in your first, like so. Pop your stitch marker in there, and guess what, guys? You're going to head off on your own and repeat these 2 rows. Now, what I will do is I will pop the time up here, right there. I'll put my hand up on top of the camera. I'll pop, do you like that? I'll pop the time right here, there. You go back to the last 2 rows. I'll set the time to be right up there, and that'll show you to go backward and forward, backward and forward, backward and forward, all the way around until you get to, let's see where we are. We are in this stitch here until you get to maybe the last 2 or 3 stitches. So make sure you've got 1, 2, 3 stitches left. We will work on that. No, we'll make it the second last. How's that? Until you're around there. Yeah, that will give you time to finish off your ribbing. All right. So all your job to do right now is continue those 2 rows where that time is right there. Get around to this stitch marker, and I'll meet you there once you're done. Alrighty, guys. Oh, let's get a close-up. All right, this is where I'm up to at the moment. You're thinking, oh, it doesn't look finished, nowhere near finished, because I asked you to get to your second stitch marker there. I'm sorry, your stitch marker at the second last stitch. Come on, Mary, you can do this. I'm already in there, so I'm going to slip stitch into the first stitch there. Slip stitch into the stitch with your stitch marker like normal, and we're just going to do a normal 2 rows, okay? So turning your work, single in your first, second. I'm going to pop this on fast for you. All right, now that was quicker than I thought. There's your top. You know how to do this part. Chain 1, turn your work like normal, nothing's different. Single in your first, make sure you pop your stitch marker in if you are new, and off we go down to the bottom. All right, this is our last stitch there. Now what you will have now is 1 left. You might have 2, depending if you've added an extra or you've taken an extra off, whatever. You slip stitch into that 1 only, yeah? Then you are going to single crochet in every stitch across. Now normally we would slip stitch into 2, but we're not going to do that, okay? Just for the last bit, because my glove, or this glove here, is created to be fairly tight, so we're giving ourselves an extra row, which is not normal, okay? So don't think that's normal, it's not. Single in your last stitch like normal, chain 1, turn your work. You're going to do yet again another row. A lot of people don't do this row, and normally I wouldn't either. I would have sewn down the top to the bottom, but this is a fairly tight piece, so we're going to do another row. Okay, single all the way down, all the way down, all the way down, and away we go. Get excited, guys. We're on a home stretch. We'll only have the thumb left to do, and then we're nearly finished. Well, then we're finished. Not nearly. We're nearly finished now, but once we do the thumb, we are done. Okay, and one in there, and I think there's one more, which I can't get to. Was that it? Let's have a look. I'm not counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There is one more. It's probably fairly tight in there, like that. 9. Once you get down to here, you're going to slip stitch into the first stitch that you were in, like that. That's it. Yeah. All right. Before we continue, just pull up your loop a little bit. Try on your mittens. If these are too tight for you, you might want to take all this. I think that's perfect. Oh, not even in frame. I think that's perfect. Once we sew that up together, it'll be perfect, right? But try on your mittens. If it's too tight for you, you need to take this ribbing undone, take undone the single crochet row and do a half double instead of a single crochet, because that single crochet row has tightened it up here. But don't forget, this is crochet, and crochet does stretch, so don't stress too much. If it's really tight where it's looking like that, that's no good. You need to take yours undone, all right? But I don't think so, okay? Now, before we continue, what I want you to do, you've chained your one, lift up that loop fairly tall, and you want enough loop to be able to sew across here with your needle. I just do that, like give it 1, 2, 3. I always do too much. Give it a cut, pull out your thread, like so. Grab your sewing needle. Okay, weave your needle. I'm sorry. Thread your needle. Weave your needle. Thread your needle. She's half asleep today, guys. She really is. All right. Now, from here, you're going to go into the back loop, or one loop only, top loop of one side, and one loop only of the other side. Now, you want to get through all the loops. You want it to be even. So make sure you don't split the yarn like I think I've just done. Yeah, and notice how I'm doing it on the right side. Yeah, and just pop it through like that. And what that'll give you is a look of the ridge. Wait until we finish off. Go from that side now on the opposite side, and on the opposite side of this one here. Oh, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. Let me do you close up so you can see. That's better. So you're going into the opposite side of your next stitch, one loop only. The opposite side of this stitch, one loop only, pulling it through like that. And you're doing the same for every stitch all the way across. Now, normally this is done on the inside, but doing it on the outside like this is going to give you that gorgeous ridge look. So it's looking exactly like the rest of your ridges. Let me open it up. See the ridges there? That's going to look the same, like that. Yeah? And just continue in that manner all the way through. Super easy, yeah? One side will look loose because it's a stitch, and the other side will look tighter because it's the chains that we first started off with. Into the chain, it's really tight there, but it's there, and into the stitch on the opposite side. Hopefully you haven't skipped any stitches or whatever. Into the stitch and into the chain. Oh, it's really tight. This is Mary's tight stitching. If I can get it in there and in there. Now this is a little awkward here because it looks like it's not complete. So we're going to make it look complete. Go into the top of the chain. You might want to go through both the loops of your chain. See? And both the loops of your opposite side. Like that. Just for this part, that's too tight. It's going to pull it. All right, let me show you again. Both the loops of the chain. That's better. So you can now see that loop there. And both the loops of the chain there. There it is. Now we've got it. All right, so you can see a little bit there. If you're really worried, skip over all of this, jump back into that side there, anywhere where you can see some stitching, pulling it through, and it's tightened it up. All right, then go into any stitch anywhere, passing it through the inside of your work, like that, turning it inside, bringing it down, and weaving it into any stitch you like. Make sure you can't see your needle from this side. Yeah, weaving it into any stitches that you like, all the way through, as far down as you want to go. It doesn't matter. It's yours. Yeah, just making sure you can't see the needle. See how I keep checking? Make sure you can't see that needle from the front. Got a few ends in there because I had to add some yarn. I had a knot in my yarn. Don't you love it? I had a knot in my yarn and I cut my yarn before, but it wasn't enough. All right, before you do that, check the front, make sure you can't see the needle. Yes, and there you go, there. And I'm going to go back one more time the other way. Why? Because you know me, I'm a stickler. You do know me, guys. If you're a newbie, you won't know, but oh, I didn't do that very well. Let's do it again. I didn't do it very well. But if you're a newbie, you'll learn that I'm really pedantic on ends, always have been. I find them awkward, but I still do them over and over again. Now, if you've got your own way of weaving in ends, that's great. Alrighty, guys, this is what we are doing right now. We are doing the thumb section of our mitten. Now, this is like, it's relatively big up the top here, so we can talk about that in a minute with our next one, right? But in the meantime, this is what we are doing. It's comfortable, warm. I cannot wait to wear these. We are going to do that now. Before we do that, you need to grab both your pieces, and let's get a close up. And remember the section here, how we had our half double crochets across here, and over here we had our chains. Remember those chains? What I want you to do is to grab a stitch marker. Find the stitch you are in there. Let me get a close up so we can see that right there. That's the stitch you are in, right? Count 5 across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pop your stitch marker in there. Now, if you had to count this way, it would still be 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then that's the stitch you are in. So don't worry about that. You just need to make sure you've got your stitch marker in your 5th stitch. Put that on both your gloves. Now the reason is, mittens I should say, put that on both your mittens. The reason is I'm only going to show you one. You can head off on your own and do that second one on your own because they are exactly the same. Place your hook in the stitch with your stitch marker. Take out your stitch marker. You don't need it there anymore. Grabbing your new thread, your grey. Now this is all I've got left, so fingers crossed. No, I'll definitely make it. It doesn't take much. All right, so grab your thread and pull it through the loop of your stitch marker. I mean, your stitch marker stitch. And just pass your thread forward because we're going to crochet over that a little bit. Chain 1. All right, I'm trying to find this. Trying to make it comfortable for you to see. And 2. In your very next stitch, you are popping a half double crochet. Right, whoops, right there. Now I'm crocheting over my tail a little bit. I'll still weave that in, but I am crocheting over the tail. Pop your stitch marker in that stitch. Very similar to the rest of our mitten. That will be the stitch we slip stitch to at the end, and we'll be putting a half double in there. All right, so it's very similar. Half double in your next one, crocheting over your tail if you like. 2, whoops, 2, 3, and I'm going to drop my tail now, and 4. Now altogether you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Now, this little tight loop that you see here and that kind of weird looking half a stitch there, you're going to do 2 together, half double crochet 2 together. So pop your hook in there, 2 loops are there, right? Pull a loop through, you can see that little loop under there, yeah? 3 loops on your hook, jump into the bottom of that half double, pull a loop through like so, 4 loops, yarn over, pull through all 4, and you know how to do the decrease. And then in this stitch here, you're just going to do a normal half double. But what you're going to do, you don't want to do it in that space or you're going to have a big gap there. Just grab some loops. Now you should have 2 loops on top and maybe 1 loop on the bottom, and do a half double 1. All right, so what you've done is that was your 2 together and that's 1. All right, so I need you now, this is a little bit tricky here. You've got like a big space here. You don't want to go doing a half double in the big space or you're going to have that space. You just want to get into the top loop or even top 2 loops if you can get through them. I'm just going to put it through to top loop and do 1 half double there. That's your second one. So you've got your 1 and your 2. And now we are going to go in top loops only, 1 loop only of all these stitches here. And let me show you close up. Right there, if you can see it, there's a top loop. There is a top loop, and right there is a second loop. So that's your 3rd stitch, and we'll do it in the next one right there. You can see that little loop in there as well. That's your 4th stitch. All right, bit tricky, but it's there. All right, 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 and your 12th. Let me get a close up so you can see it. Your 12th stitch is a little tricky, but it's there, right there. Just 1 loop only, all right? 12 is there. All right, so for the next 2 stitches, not there, there and there. They're a little tricky, but they're there, okay? You do your 2 together, and you want to do that right in the groove. 1, and into that next one, and you can probably get it through 2 loops of the next one, really tight, and 2 together. All right, then you've got 5 half double crochets across. 1, this is easy. Now 2, 3, 4, and 5. Oops, 5. Now this stitch has the chains in it, all right? So you go straight into the stitch with the chains, with your half double, and slip stitch into the stitch with a stitch marker. Like so. Chain 1 and 2. And once again, half double crochet into your next stitch. Hold it there. Grab your stitch marker and pop it in there. We're going to count that as being your first stitch for this round, just for this round. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in your next 2 stitches, you're going to do 2 together. Start your half double, hold it up there, jump into your next there, and do those 2 together, and then count another 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Once again, 2 together. Okay, very simple. Count 4. 1, 2, whoops, try it again. 2, 3, 4. I'm sorry, am I going fast? I do apologise. Yep, 2 together in the next 2, like so, and 4 across. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now you should be left with, there's your chains, these 2 stitches. You're going to do those 2 together, 1 and 2 together like so. Now we are going to be putting a half double in that space where we usually put it in with chain 2, and then we're going to slip stitch. But when we slip stitch, we are slip stitching, that's split a little bit there, but we are slip stitching with the red, all right? So start your half double in, well, put your half double in that chain stitching there, all right? Like so, and then go to slip stitch into your stitch with your stitch marker, take out your stitch marker, but grabbing your colour 2. I've got the red, whatever colour 2 yours was, all right? So grab the colour 2, pull a loop through, pull it through to the loop on your hook. Now this is where life gets a little tricky. All right, so you're passing your grey forward like we did before. Just grab your tail at the back. Yeah, it's a little tricky now. Chain 1, give it a bit of a tug, and then pass your grey back over, holding your tail and your grey in your hand. If you want to crochet over that tail you can, but it's all a little bit too confusing. You've chained 1, now you're going to chain that second one right there. From here, if you look carefully, we are in that stitch there. So you're going to pop your half double into that next stitch. So pop your half double in there and put your stitch marker in there. Now just be wary over the next 2 rows, things will change with the pattern, but for this one here, you've got 1 there and 1 into your next, which is 2 and 3. Okay, and now, whoops, it's falling all over the place. We're doing 2 together, 1 and 2. Let's try that again, 2. That did not even go in. All right, and your next one is over here, and you're counting 3 across. 1, 2, 3, again 2 together, 3 across, 1, 2, 3, 2 together. Okay, pattern all the way through, 1, 2, 3, and again you've got 2 more left, 2 together. All right, and then in that very first stitch that you are in, and you can actually go over that red right there, and you're going through that stitch, you're doing 1 half double in there, and you are slip stitching up the top, but you're dropping your red. It's a very tricky time, isn't it? And you're pulling your grey through like that, pull it through to the loop on your hook, hold it there, pass your red yarn, not the tail, just the yarn, forward, grab your grey, chain 1, without losing the thread, okay, pass the red back, chain 2, I need to pull that stitch marker out, okay, I'm just going to get the little tail end here and shove it right in there because it's really annoying me. Okay, yarn over your hook. And this one here, normally we jump into that one and then we do half doubles, 2 togethers, whatever over here. We're going to do it in these next 2 stitches, or our first 2. So instead of just doing a half double, we're going to do half double, 2 together. So start your stitch, jump into your next one and do your 2 together, and that's where you're going to pop your stitch marker. All right. And once again, 3 across, 1, 2, 3. Next one, 2 together. Whoops, 2 together. Take 2. And then 1, 2, 3, and your next one, 2 together. 1, 2 and 3. All right, so here it's, well, I've just dropped my skein of yarn. You didn't see that, which is good. It's actually a little tricky. Normally we would put a half double there and one in there. Yeah, we're not going to do that. We're going to do both of them together. So we're doing the end together and that one together. So yarn over your hook, that one where our work is in. So you start your half double, jump into the stitch with all your work, pull a loop through and pull the loop through. Very tricky, but we're there. Slip stitch into the top of that stitch, but with your red, so drop your grey. Told you this is all going to get very confusing, didn't I? All right, drop your grey, pull your red through and pull it through to the loop you are in. Nice and tight, yeah? Drop your red, pass your grey forward. Make sure that grey is fairly tight, otherwise you're going to have a big gap there. Chain 1, pass the grey back, and chain 2. And in this round, all we're doing is half double crochet, so it's very easy. You're skipping the stitch you are in, jumping into the next, and half double crochet in every stitch across. So even though it's easy, it's a lot tighter because we have taken a lot of stitches in. All right, like so. All right, that was the last stitch there, guys. All right, so yarn over your hook, popping into your starting stitch, do your half double like so, dropping your red. This time you don't have to do any yarn overs or anything. You're going to slip stitch into your grey like so. Just tighten everything up, chain 1 and 2, because we're going to be chopping that red. In fact, we'll chop it now so we don't get confused. Give it a cut, because that's the end of our red now, guys. Notice how I gave myself a longer tail? That's what I do. Oh, actually, you know what? Pop your tail in. It's only going to confuse us. So pop it inside your mitten. Get in there. All right, now we half double into the very next stitch. There. And there. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting to put stitch markers in. Pop your stitch marker in that one we just did. And half double all the way across with your grey. So let me just do this one with the grey. Whoops. All right, so here we are. I got crochet happy. All right, so here we are at the end of the row. I did my last stitch there. We're going to pop our half double crochet in the stitch with the chains like that. And then we're just going to slip stitch to join like we would normally do. Your job now is to repeat this round of grey 3 more times, okay? So you need to do 3 more rounds of the grey. Once we're done and you come back, we will do a final round and then we will sew that together. But we won't do any of that until we try it on, and I'll show you whether you want to make some adjustments or not, all right? So head off on your own, do your 3 more rounds, and I shall meet you back here once you're done. Alrighty guys, so here we are at the end of our 4 rounds. Yay! Now let's try this on so that you can see what it looks like. And this is pretty much what it looks like for me. It literally reaches the tip right there. It goes right there. That's where it needs to go on your thumb. We are going to do another round, and this round is going to be kind of like a close-up round, and then we're going to sew it together. If you want yours to be a little bit taller, you might need to do 1 more row, okay? And then do this next row with us that we're going to do now. But my other one, I did do that extra row. Let me show you the other one. Oh, what I've done with her. Is this the one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the one. I've got 3 here, guys. So what I've done here, this one here, I did the extra row. So my tip's going to end up right there, whereas this one will end up a little bit further down. Now let me show you. I'll take this one off and put this one here on so you can see it. With this one on here, you can see on here I've got way too much. That's how much. I've got 2 rows too much. I'm going to take this top round undone because I don't want the extra round on this one. But on your one, I've done it so that it's perfect. All right, so we're going to do 1 round of closing up, you know, half doubles, 2 togethers and so on. And then we will sew it together. All right, but again, if your work is like this, like you've got a nice tall long thumb, not a little shorty like mine, then you need to do another round. Okay, because your work needs to end up just on the tip of your thumb, not on my nail, just ignore my nail, but on the tip of your thumb, which is where it ends up. All right, so that's it. Let's get on with our final round. Now, yours truly has already chained my 2. So I'm just going to jump into my next stitch. If you haven't chained your 2, do that now. I'm just going to jump into my next stitch with my normal half double crochet. Pop my stitch marker in there. You'll need it for this round because it can be really tight, yeah. Your next 2 stitches, you're doing 2 together. So 1 and 2 together. Then 1 in the next. Next 2, 2 together. Just being careful you're not going to the same one that you're in. 1 and 2 together. And 1 in there. And again, 1 and 2 together. And 1 into your next. And in your very last 2 stitches, you are doing 2 together. 1 and 2 together. And then you are doing your final 1 in that very last half double right there. And then get excited, slip stitch to join. Pull a loop through, take out that stitch marker, chain 1, pull up your loop. Giving your work a cut, like so. Get excited. Notice how I left a really long tail. I should have mentioned that. So leave yourself a long tail. All right, so thread your needle, like so. All right, now the way it works here is you have your stitches, yeah? What you're going to do is go in and around your stitches, all right? But not there, that's not where we want to be. All right, so we are here, yes? You're going in your stitch, not your post area, but your actual stitch. So you go in the stitch, around the stitch, and into the next stitch, pulling it through like that. Going to go around this stitch, in there, and around the other one. Mine are a little bit loose. Hopefully yours aren't as loose as mine. And pulling that through like that. Once again, you're going around the stitch into your next stitch and pulling it through to the next stitch like that. Again, over and under. One more. Over. And this is going directly into your space there where your knot is. Right, so your knot's kind of up there, but that's where we want to be there. Pull it through and you're going over that and back into the stitch with your knotted area. Once you go in there, you just give everything a tug and it's closed up shop. Then you just grab your needle, pop it through the center of your work, pulling it through that part of your mitten. Pull your mitten inside out. This is the awkward part, guys. And you still have these red threads and things to weave in. Just pull it through. And all you're doing here is you are weaving in and out of your stitches. Anywhere you like. Just keep weaving in and out. Those tails. Or that tail, I should say. Anywhere you like. Making sure you're not going through too much. Making sure you're just going through some threads and not all of your work, or that's going to come through from the outside of your thumb, yeah? So just going through, you actually are just splitting threads. Now, if you want to, you can be more pedantic and make a knot entirely up to you, but I think if you go through 3 or 4 times, that's not going to come out. And then go back the other way. Anywhere you like. One more, because I'm fussy. And that's it. And I'm going to cut that right there. Now I'm going to readjust my other mitten, and I'll explain that to you in a minute. Because even on the pattern, the written pattern. Oh, by the way, guys, the written pattern will be on my website in about a week's time, because I've written that up. This is what happens when you're not feeling well. You do things. You do things that you don't usually do. All right, so there you go. So that is your thumb right there. Now, the reason you've got to weave in those red ends and the other ends or whatever else you've got in there. Now, the reason I'm going to undo the other one, I did mine an extra row on the other one. So I actually did an extra row. You don't see it, but it's up there. I'm taking that extra row off because even with this, I've got plenty room to move for my to have my nails longer if I wanted to. But if you are taller, do that. Do that. Come on, Mary, you can do this. Do that extra row, okay? And let me show you what the extra row looks like, so you can see that it's just ridiculous. It's way too big, yeah. Whereas this one is perfect. All right. So that's how it should look. You can see the difference. One extra row. So I'm going to take that extra row undone. And I've even, weaved that in too. It's going to be awkward, but I'll do it. And then it'll be okay. All right. So thank you so much for watching, guys. If this is what you like wearing, then make a gazillion of them because they are gorgeously warm. Now, I did them with that yarn that I used, but you can use any 10 ply. Just remember that this particular yarn does stretch a little bit. So if your 10 ply is a tight 10 ply, like if it's a yarn that doesn't stretch enough, go up a hook size. All right, I think I mentioned that in the promo. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and all the wonderful things that you guys, well, pretty much already do for me. And also don't forget to join us on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. and Wednesday afternoons at 4 p.m. That's Melbourne, Australia time. And we have our lives. And this is where we get to create, let's not say create, choose a colour combination for these live antics. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the lovely Korene, one of our subscribers, got to choose this. When you join our lives, we do these live antics and you get to choose a colour combination of our very next project. Yay! The next one coming up is a little zipped purse with a little zipper on it, and the lovely Mary Wanamaker chose a colour combination of the zip and a colour combination of some yarn as well. So we are going to do that next, but not till next week. We've done this. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see everybody on our lives. Ciao for now.